And so the critical parent voice is judging and shaming. The first book I ever ran across that had anything to do with inner child kind of stuff was a book by a German author named Alice Meller, and it was called The Drama of the Gifted Child. And it was a really dense, thick book, and I never made it all the way through it. But right in the beginning, she said something really powerful that really impacted me. She talked about how the German philosophers of the early 19th century, who were the precursors of the modern psychology movement, used to emphasize that in order to control children's behavior, you had to stamp out their exuberance, stamp out their joy of living, break their spirits, basically. That's what we come out of. Children should be seen and not heard, spare the rod and spoil the child, all that crap, So a lot of us got the message it wasn't okay to be a kid. It wasn't okay to make mistakes, to spill the milk, It wasn't okay to do anything to upset our parents. It wasn't okay to be too emotional about anything, It wasn't okay to be too happy. If we were exuberant in church or at the store, we'd get shut down, And most of us also learned it wasn't okay to be sexual. So basically, the rules the critical parent voice is going by is that that it's shameful. It's shame, causes us to shame and judge ourselves for being imperfect. At the same time, we're terrified of doing it wrong, and we're trying to figure out how to do it right. There's no way to relax and enjoy life when you're living that way. There's no way. In my book, I talk about that we got taught, like I said, 180 degrees the opposite of the truth. So we got taught we had to do human perfect in order to get spiritual. And the truth is we are already spiritual and we are perfect, and we're never going to do human perfect. But we've been doing it backwards, to think we should be in control of things we can't control, like other people and life, and to not have any effective way to take control of what we can control, because we've been trying to control ourselves with fear and shame and guilt. And when we shame and judge ourselves, the rebel in us rebels against that. And that's when we do that, what I call the battle cry of codependence, which is I'll show you, I'll get me. Somebody hurts me, so then I do something to hurt myself, because I go to one of my old tools for going unconscious and nurturing myself, like alcohol or drugs or sex or food or whatever it is. So the critical parent voice is trying to control our behavior and emotions, and by judging and shaming us for being human. And one of the things we learned is to keep up appearances, to wear masks, to keep the secrets, because our parents were more concerned about what the neighbors thought about them because of our behavior than they were about what was causing our behavior. Because they didn't know anything about what caused behavior. They didn't know any of that stuff. And so they were trying to get us to look good so they look good. And so part of what's really important is to really get it that the way our parents treated us wasn't actually personal. They were projecting their issues on us, their hopes and dreams, their fears and insecurity, their shame and guilt, and they couldn't see us as separate, unique human beings. And if they're still alive, they may still not be able to see you as a separate, unique human being. That wasn't personal. One of the biggest things for recovering codependence to learn is how to not take other people's behavior personally. Because other people are just dancing with their wounds. What they're doing isn't actually about me. It's so ridiculous, this stuff, because I always felt like I was shameful and unworthy and some kind of a horrible monster, but I thought everybody was thinking about me all the time. It's really pretty silly, So because of that, keeping up appearances, I used to, compare how well. I kept my deepest thoughts and feelings hidden from you all because I thought they were shameful and bad. But when I felt bad, I compare how I felt inside to how other people look on the outside and think they knew something I didn't know. Look at that happy couple. Why can't I have a good relationship? And I didn't realize they're all keeping up appearances too. They all got taught to be emotionally dishonest and keep up appearances. And so we need to stop comparing my insides to other people's outsides. And so basically, the other thing that happened is we were little, they were big. They had life and death power over us. So we had to focus on them and try to read them to try to figure out how to get our needs met and survive. And if you come from an overtly dysfunctional family, alcoholic or mental illness or fighting or depression, whatever, then we became hyper vigilant in trying to read them. We focused all this energy on trying to read them. And then we went to school and we focused all this energy on trying to read them and figure out how to fit in there. And we grew up focused outside and never seeing ourselves clearly because we were looking at ourselves through this filter of shame and judgment for being imperfect. As long as I couldn't see myself clearly, I couldn't see other people clearly, I couldn't see life clearly. In order to change how I'm relating to other people in life, I need to change my core relationship with myself. In order to change our relationship with anything, we need to change our perspective of it. In my book, I quote there's an old joke about three blind men describing an elephant by touch, and they're describing three different things because they're touching different parts of the elephant. And what I say is each one is speaking his own truth. They just have a lousy perspective, because they're blind, And basically that's what codependency is we have a lousy perspective of who we are and what the meaning and purpose of life is, why we're here, basically. And so what's so important is to start changing our core relationship with ourselves. Because, what happens is that, because we got taught how to be adults in high school, we get out of high school, we think we know everything at that point, and we think we know how to do life. And at some point, we realize that we need help and we start going to counseling or therapy or something. And then we realize that we have patterns and issues. And then we try to control the patterns and issues at the same time we're judging and shaming ourselves for having patterns and issues. And the patterns and issues are symptoms, they're not the cause. So important to get back to the cause and start changing it on a causal level. So the key step in doing that, the key technique, is to develop a detached, objective observer perspective or witness perspective. Part of the problem is we already have a witness perspective. It's the critical parent voice. I used to just think that's how I thought. I didn't realize that everyone has a critical parent voice and that it's a conditioned reflex. It's programming from childhood and that it's not telling me the truth. I had to realize that it wasn't telling me the truth and start learning how to set boundaries with it in order to start, changing my core relationship with myself. One of the things I always ask people when I start talking about the observer perspective is whether they've done any Eastern meditation kind of practices. Because in the Eastern meditation practices, they teach an observer perspective, but it's a passive observer where you observe your thoughts and your feelings, but you don't actually change anything. And some people actually use meditation as a form of antidepressant to stay disassociated from their feelings. And that doesn't work. As long as we're disassociated from our feelings are going to run the show. And so it's actually a form of spiritual bypass to use meditation to escape the feelings, because we need to deal with the feelings. So the observer I'm talking about is a proactive intervening observer. We actually go in and change the ego programming. We actually can change the neural pathways in our brain doing this work. So it's really powerful stuff.